Okay, welcome back from the break. I want you to reflect on this. Show me a leader and I will know his or her people. Show me his people and I will know the leader. Okay? Your chief. If I'm around your chief for a couple of days, which I have been, I'm going to know you. And if I have never met your chief, if I'm around you for a couple of days, I'm going to know the leader. Okay? If I'm around you guys, I'm going to know your leader after a little bit. Is this only a chief thing? Your FTO, you're shaking your head no. What is that? What you said no. What are you talking about? Yeah. Okay. But let's say it's not a chief, it's not only a chief thing. Let me ask you this. If I have a patrol sergeant, let's say on the night shift, and let's say I have a sergeant on the night shift, and he is one to not really do anything. Okay? If you have a sergeant on the night shift that won't do anything, he doesn't do much work. He's not going to get you in trouble, but he just doesn't do a lot of work. With that type of sergeant in place, and you're grinning back there, I think you know where I'm going with this. With that type of sergeant in place, will he or she have a shift full of go-getters? Why? You said no. Why?
You've got to lead by example.
Okay, he's got to lead by example.
If you can't expect your people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Okay, so he won't do much, and you're saying that his shift there will not be go-getters on that shift. Why do you think that is? It reflects him. Okay, it reflects him. I'm going to come back to that. So let's say we have a shift sergeant. He doesn't do anything, nor does his entire shift. But let's say an officer who is a go-getter, let's say you're a go-getter, you probably are, more than likely, and you got from another shift, but you got sent over to that shift. What do you think is going to happen to him if he starts getting after it on this shift where the sergeant does not like anyone to do anything? What's going to happen here? They're going to what?
Berate him. Like, slow down, dude. You're going to make us all look bad.
All right, what's the sergeant going to do?
Slow down. Back off.
Okay? The sergeant's going to tell him, hey, you need to slow down. We don't really do that here on this shift. Is that good leadership? No, it's not. I think that's happened here in the past. I know it happens in law enforcement, and not only law enforcement. It can be, this ain't just to law enforcement only. You can have a boss that don't want to do nothing. He don't want his people doing nothing either. But a sergeant like that, that under John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that's called the law of the lid. The law of the lid. If the supervisor's a 3 or 4, he ain't going to let 8s and 9s and 10s be under him. He's going to hold them down. He's going to restrict them. You may even have a sergeant say, hey, come here, Junior. You just come over to my shift. Let me share with you one word I want you to remember. It's quiet. You're back there grinning. Because we've seen this. Probably years ago, or examples of it, but examples come to mind where the shift sergeant didn't want you doing anything. I want you to stay quiet. That's not leadership. That's called the law of the lid. That's possible for that's not just a sergeant thing. It's not just, I've seen chiefs that act like that. And their whole department is not, their department is not a bunch of go-getters. They're a bunch of do-nothings. Because the chief is like that. That's not good leadership. We don't want that. Here's some of my people. They're go-getters. Some of your people, go-getters. If you're going to be a leader, be a good one and be the real deal. This is what this class is about. If you lead people, you are influencing them for better or for good. For better or for worse, I mean. If you're influencing people, you're influencing them for good or you're influencing them for worse. So let me ask you this. Let me go around the room real quick. Tell me who influenced you the most in your life?
Yes, my family.
Your family? Who in your family?
That sounds weird. No one specifically, just my whole family.
Just the whole family. You know, I don't hear that much, but I've heard it a few times up here. The whole family influenced me. That's good stuff. Back here.
My grandmother?
My grandma. My daddy.
My parents.
Your parents. Both parents. That's great.
My dad.
Your daddy. Daddy? Mom. Okay, that's good stuff. So I have to ask you, these were major impacts in your life. What kind of impact are you going to be in someone's life? What kind of leader are you going to be that impacts people? If you are currently a leader or you're going to be a leader in the future. You don't know what you're going to do. If you'd have told me one time, if you'd been speaking to David Wilson, said, you're going to be a police chief one day, I'd have looked at you and said, you have lost your mind. I ain't going to be a police chief. Are you crazy? They got a life expectancy of like 4 years of being a police chief. I'm in 13, so I guess I broke that rule. I got to look at one day. Most chiefs I know, they're pretty good and they stay in there a long time, but you don't know exactly what you're going to do in the future. So take notes in here, because if you're not a leader, you may be one. Okay, and I want to prepare you to be a good leader. Every organization should have at least 1 or 2 characters in their leadership team. You got to have a little spice in the stew. And I've already met some characters at this agency. I already met them. I know who they are. We've got them in my agency. Got a bunch of characters. People that like to work out and let you know they work out. This is 2 officers. That's just me in a Christmas parade, me leading the Christmas parade, and them cutting up when I come by, take their picture. All I'll do is hold my camera up and they start cutting up. It's good stuff. That's just your folks. Some of your folks taking the plunge, winter plunge or something. That look familiar? That's one of my police officers being paid to dance, community policing. That's some of your highly dressed detectives. Y'all need a higher level dress code, I can tell you that. That's pitiful. Chief's even got that he's even got that the do kick back some up there. That's pretty good stuff. That's old school stuff right there, that dress code. Let me tell you this. This is what I heard from Dr. Jack Enter one time. And he was a cop, but he got his got his doctorate. And I was at a school one time listening to him, and this is what he said. He said, you know, a lot of the public look at you police officers as heroes. Now, police don't like that term. We don't like heroes. We're not heroes. We don't really look at ourselves like that. But a lot of the public does. And so this is what he said one day. He goes, so if the public looks at you as a hero, how can you be a hero to the public in the streets, but be a coward? Be a coward when it comes to you not doing your job as a leader. And when I heard that, it stung. You know, I was like, wow, that's strong. But it's true. And the public wouldn't understand that. The public wouldn't understand how a police officer can run towards danger and do brave, heroic things, but turn around and be kind of cowardly on some that don't want to do their job as a leader. And so I want you to remember that. Let that stand out to you. Let me ask you this. I have taught this class all over the state of Alabama. I've taught it to the FBI. I've taught it all over the place. And so what I'm going to ask you, I hear at every place I go teach. And so what you're about to hear, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Your answers are critical on what you should do as a leader and what you should not do as a leader. So let me ask you this, going around the room, because usually there's 20 or 30 in the class like we've had so far. This is a small class, and for recording purposes, that's good because we can go through it pretty fast. But what do you like in a leader?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. What do you like in a leader?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. You only get to copy once.
Oh,
No, I'm messing with you. Huh?
Tell me to not do something that he wouldn't do.
Okay, that's good. Tell me, say that again.
Tell me to do something that he wouldn't do.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. Tell me to do something he or she would not want to do themselves. What do you like in a leader? Support. Support.
Open-minded.
Open-mindedness. Open-mindedness, that's important. Yes. Honesty. That's kind of important. You're going to be honest. If you're going to be my leader, I need to have an honest leader. Yes, sir. Consistency. He's shaking his head. Huh? Positivity.
Effective communication.
You're on this communication thing. That's why the city got you hired, moved you on up. Effective communication. You going to keep answering all day with communication?
That's my wheelhouse.
I know that's your wheelhouse. We're going to broaden that thing during this class, okay? That's good stuff. All right, so let me ask you this. Those are all, and see, when you're listening to 20 or 30 people say what they like in a leader, you get a full just roster of good things. But what y'all have said is critical things, critical items. Now, what causes you to lose respect for a leader?
Like I said, tell me to do something that when he's sitting there, tell me to do something that he wouldn't do.
Tell me to do something he wouldn't do. He wants me to do it. Yes.
Can't stand somebody who says, all right, do what I say and not do what I do.
Ooh, do as I say, not as I do. That'll grit your teeth. Yes. Liar, liar. Pants on fire. If your leader lies to you, can you trust him or her after that? That's kind of a one-time deal. It's not impossible to recover from it, but it's one of the hardest things to do is to recover once you've lied to somebody as a leader. It's hard. On the verge of impossible. Not impossible, but it's dang hard. Yes?
I guess the opposite of mine, like closed-minded, somebody who won't listen.
Won't listen. They just will not listen, just the opposite of what you said. Yes?
I'm still thinking.
You're still thinking. Inconsistencies, you just reversing what you said.
Like they write me up for something, whatever, and then turn around and ignore it from another.
Write you up for something, then ignore it when it happens when someone else does it. And that's not cool. That's not good leadership. Yes, ma'am.
You want me to jump on the train and say ineffective communication?
Come on with it, whatever you want to give.
Somebody who maybe secretive, like keeping plans secret, maybe something like that. Like not bringing in all the necessary players into something. Like the hands over here doing one thing, or the body's doing one thing.
Left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing because there's not communication.
Yes.
Left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing because there's no communication. Lack of communication. She come back to communication. She still went all the way over here and she still wrapped it up into communication. That's good stuff. Time's up. What you got?
I guess what you said earlier about being a coward.
Being a coward. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Like not addressing something that needs to be addressed because they're afraid of how they'll be perceived.
Okay, not being a bold leader, not doing what they're supposed to do, being a coward, if you will. That's hard. That's hard to hear that, but they won't do what they're supposed to do as a leader because they're afraid of the perception or maybe not being popular or a variety of reasons why a leader won't do their job. That's basically what you said, right? Yeah. Okay, those are critical, important areas. Let me share this with you. The definition of leadership. There are many definitions of leadership. I've seen short ones, long ones, real busy ones, ones with big words all in it. But let me tell you the best leadership definition I've ever heard. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Who said that? Does anyone know? That man right there, John Maxwell. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I will tell you that whatever you want to do in life, either professionally or personally, this next statement is critically important as well. Either professionally or in your personal life, okay? Everything rises and falls on leadership. Pick a topic. Pick a topic. If something's not going well on it, look to leadership. Because everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is critically important. What does leadership look like when it's done right? Okay? If it's done right, it can be hard at first. Let me ask you this, what makes leadership hard? What's hard about leadership? We have to deal with our friends, true. The broader look at that. Leadership is hard because we have to deal with our people. Our friends are people. Problems within the people. Or people who are problems, that's right. What is the best thing about leadership? The best thing about leadership is we get to deal with our people. So our people, they are the best thing about leadership, and our people are the hardest thing about leadership. That's leadership. Okay? The best thing about leadership is people. But let me cover the heavy side of dealing with people, the heavy side of that for a minute. If you've ever, present company excluded as always, but if you've ever worked for a bad leader, raise your hand. Almost everybody has worked with a bad leader over the years. Present company excluded, of course, especially when there's 30 people in a room of all rank. Do you know any bad leaders? Sure you do. Well, let me tell you all this. As a police chief, when I brought in a professional promotion system to Foley PD, that was the first change in our department. I have to take you back to when I first got to Foley. Foley, it was 13 years ago. Foley was high crime. It's not high crime anymore, but it was high crime. It was, in law enforcement channels, it was called the murder capital of Baldwin County. Foley was. The PD was real beat up. We didn't have a police chief for like a couple of years almost. The morale in the department was terrible. They're spread out. There's only like 4 officers working 99 square miles because we worked the police jurisdiction. And it was a training ground for all other agencies. Okay? That's the picture. And so when I brought in and we came in and we put a leadership team in place and we started making changes and we got the PD turned around. And it affected the city as well. We didn't do it by ourselves, but Team Foley is a great place. Foley is a great place to live. It's a great place to work. But 13 years ago, that was a little rocky. And so we got that turned around. But one of the things we did early on, I brought in a professional promotion system. And so when these folks come in and they study for like 60 days, the folks that are eligible, and it's not the good old boy system anymore, okay? First step one was move away from the good old boy system. What is the good old boy system? Let me ask you that. Who knows, who can tell me what that is? The good old boy system. If you're buddy with the chief, you got promotions. Or buddy with somebody of influence, yeah. That's the good old boy system. Nobody likes it. It hurts you. It hurts your agency. Well, we moved away from that and we went to a professional system. And so once the men and women started testing and coming through a professional system and started getting promoted on their own merit, that was good stuff to see. And so when you let's say your whole, or back here in the back, your whole desire was maybe one day be a sergeant. Okay? And so then you made sergeant. I called you and told you, hey, you made sergeant. And so I've got it in my head, in memory, in my heart, the different times I've gotten to call employees and tell them, hey, you came out number 1, you're getting promoted. You're the next chief dispatcher, or you're the next sergeant. And so sometimes they get emotional when they tell me how that made them feel about getting to do that. And so I've got a good memory of some of the sweet things I've heard from them as they were emotional talking with me about getting promoted. Well, let me tell you what I've never seen. This is what I've never seen. Chief, I just want to tell you, I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the call. Let me know I got promoted, and I just appreciate the opportunity you gave me. And Chief, I'm going to be my best. I'm going to do my very best to be a bad leader. I ain't never heard that. Never have I heard someone say, Chief, I'm going to do my very best to be a bad leader. Now let me say this, in 13 years of promoting all these people, do you think every single one of them turned out to be good leaders? No, they did not. Some of them turned out to be bad leaders. Now they needed developing, and some developed into good leaders, and some did not develop even after much effort, and they are no longer supervisors because they just wasn't getting it. But don't be a bad leader. A lot of times people don't know they're bad leaders. But you have to work with them. Your job as a leader is to develop other leaders. Lead people the right way. Leadership involves all of this. If you're going to be a leader one day, this is what it involves. It involves in quick succession sometimes. It involves all of this in 1 week maybe sometimes. Hiring, firing, promoting, demoting, forging ahead, slowing down, reining in, empowering, holding accountable, rewarding, buckling down, celebrating, or even crying with your troops. What do you mean? You're a police officer. What are you talking about crying with your troops? What in the world is that about? Well, let me tell you this. If you'd have told me 13 years ago that as a police chief, and I'm sitting in my office and an employee comes in who I care about, and they start telling me in a closed door session what's going on in their personal life and what's happening to them, and sometimes it's been heartbreaking. They may be losing a child next week. Got a kid about to die of cancer next week. Or another one comes in and their mother died of cancer last week. Their wife's divorced them, took the kids. He just totaled out his truck. And so sometimes these things are heartbreaking. And you're sitting there as a chief listening to them. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's been times I've looked at them and I'm hearing what they're saying and they're crying. And I can't help but start crying because I care about them. It's heartbreaking. And I'll be honest with you, there's been a couple of times I've sat back in my chair and I've said, Lord, you got to give me something to say to him or her because I got nothing. I can't think of anything to say. And the Lord has always been gracious to me to give me something to say even at the 11th hour. But the point being, sometimes you may cry with your troops, and I'm saying that's not a bad thing. I ain't talking about you're going to be a titty baby all the time, but I'm talking about you care about your people, and sometimes you may cry with them because what they're going through is unbearable. One time I had a female officer commit suicide. And my goal before I retired was to never lose an officer on a line of duty death. That was a major goal, and I reached that. I'm so thankful to the good Lord that hedge of protection was over my people. And I never lost an officer. That was my major goal in 13 years. But I did lose one to suicide. And it was heartbreaking. It tore the agency up. And she was a fine officer. She was a go-getter. She was a trip. And she killed herself. And no one saw it coming. She was a bubbly, outgoing, great person, a great officer. And so I'm at her funeral, and I'm talking about her in front of everybody up at the podium in the sanctuary. And at some point, so I'm looking out at the audience, and to my left is all the cops. And I can see the pain in their faces. And of course, the civilians and the family on the right side, or however that was set up like that. And I got to talking about her, and I lost my composure, and I started crying. And I got choked up. And so I regrouped after a couple of seconds, and I finished saying what I was going to say. And so afterwards, I felt the need to walk over to my officers, and I said, hey, we were away from everybody. I said, hey, I want to tell y'all that I'm sorry that I embarrassed you. I'm sorry I lost my composure. And I'm sorry that I embarrassed you. And my deputy chief, and there was other officers there too, my deputy chief looked at me and he said, Chief, don't you ever apologize for showing that you cared about her, because you are simply displaying how we feel. They're sitting in there, and I saw the pain in their eyes. And so he told me, don't you ever apologize for displaying emotion over people you care about, because that's how we feel anyway. You're simply representing us up there. And that helped me. And so I'm saying, when I say here, lead people the right way, leadership involves maybe even crying for and with your troops. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So don't look down on that, and I don't. So as a leader, other things it involves is this. As a leader, you take responsibility when things go wrong. That's your job as a leader. And when things go great, you don't take credit for that. Who do you give credit to when things go right? Your people. Thank you. So if it's a snafu, you own it. If it's a glorious day, you give credit to the troops. That's what you're supposed to do as a leader. So some of you have already said this. What you expect in a leader, you expect them to set the example. Lead by example, okay? Lead from the front. Use situational leadership styles. Destination disease. Okay? I'm going to talk about, don't catch destination disease. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Lead by example. Lead from the front. When y'all said lead from the front, what do you mean by that? In police work, what does lead from the front mean? Can you lead from the front from your office? No. You need to be out there with your people. Lead from the front. So, years ago, I think I was a lieutenant at Daphne. This man with a gun was in the Walmart parking lot. And he started shooting his weapon in the Walmart parking lot. And as you know, all Walmarts have a ton of people there. So we get up there and we set up a perimeter around him and we start trying to negotiate with him. And he simply gets in his car and drives out of our perimeter. We didn't know his car was there. So he just simply drives out of our perimeter. And he drives through our perimeter and he crashes into a tree in the wood line over here. And then he gets out with his weapon and he's running towards, trying to make it towards an apartment complex. Is there a concern there? What is the concern? He's going to hurt people in the apartment complex. And so we get our perimeter set, a second perimeter set around him. And I'm a back a ways, but I'm pretty close to him. I'm about a little bit further than that wall back there. And I have a partner next to me. And we're telling him to drop the gun and all that. And I said, "You got me?" He said, "Yeah." So I look back to an officer, some officers back. I look back to an officer and I said, "Hey, get up here and help us." And I'm set back up. And I don't hear any movement. And so, "Hey, you got me again?" "Yeah." "All right, hold on." I look back. I said, "Hey, get up here and help us." And we're set back up and I don't hear any movement. I said, "You got me again?" "Yeah." I said, "All right." I look back and I said, you get up here now and help us." And this is what I see him do. What? Y'all laughing. This don't go with law enforcement. Gun calls that you don't do this in law enforcement. Okay, so let me ask you this. At that point, do you think, I said, "Hey, Mr. Man with the gun, kind of acting crazy right now, would you do me a favor and not shoot us? I got a little situation I got to take care of. Hold up on shooting me." "Okay, hold up just a minute." "Okay, everybody back here that would like to come up here and help us take care of this guy and mitigate this situation, raise your hand and let's take a democratic vote. Let's have a democratic vote on who would like to come up here and help us." Do you think I used the democratic style of leadership at that time? Huh? No. What style do you think I went to immediately?
Get your ass up here. That's what I do with my kids.
I'm not going to say exactly what she said. I went autocratic, which is get up here now. I went autocratic. And I mean now. Well, let me ask you this, though. I want to say this. There's a place for autocratic. There's a place for democratic form of leadership, style of leadership. But if you're autocratic at work every day, to every person, in every situation, that ain't right. That's not good. Do you like working for people like that every day? No, you don't. No, Yeah, sometimes on a situation. Okay, so the best leadership style, if you are a leader, or if you're going to be a future leader, and if you don't think you're going to be a future leader, you don't know what you're going to do in the future. I give you me, with gray hair and a police chief. I never thought I'd see that happen. You use the situational leadership style. That you use a style of leadership that fits the situation that you're in. The situation you're facing. It also involves maybe your skills or your limited skills in a certain area, your experience in a certain area, the experience of your team. You use the style of leadership that fits the situation you're in. That right there is the best leadership style to use every day because it's a blended or mixed form of leadership styles. Destination disease. Who can tell me what that is? It's not a good thing. If you are a leader and you catch destination disease, what does that mean? It's not a good thing.
Your goal is to be a sergeant or lieutenant, you get there and you're like, okay, I'm done.
Oh, perfect. I don't normally get that. She said, your goal is to be a sergeant or lieutenant, and you get there and you say, okay, I'm done. Done what?
I'm done trying.
I'm done trying. I'm done in everything. You can't tell me anything. I know it all. Why? Because I arrived. I've met my destination, and you can't tell me anything because I don't want to know. I know it already anyway. Because why? Because I made where I was going. You can't tell me anything. That's not a good thing. That's called destination disease. It's a disease that you don't need to catch. As a leader, as a good leader, you always keep learning. Not all readers are leaders, but I promise you, if you want to be a good leader, all good leaders must be readers. What do I mean by that? All leaders must be readers. What do I mean? Continue learning. You don't ever quit learning. And you don't. You don't catch destination disease as a leader. That's not a good thing. Lead from the front. You got to walk ahead of your people so they can see which way they have to go. But you got to be close to them, not too far ahead. If you get so far ahead that they can't see you anymore, you're not really leading them. You're just going on a long walk by yourself. You're not leading anybody. They can't see you anymore. You're getting too far ahead of them. So walk in close with them, but not so close that you're all up in their business. That's leading from the front. Leading from the side, and we're going to cover leading from the rear. What are you talking about leading from the rear? What in the world is that? I thought we lead from the front. Well, yeah, you do. But there's two other ones. You lead from the side as well. You walk beside them so they can participate with you in this journey, and we have a journey. There ain't nothing like police work and even working for a city government. It's one of the best jobs in the world. You're on a journey. The stuff you see and the stuff, I heard y'all talking at break, some of the stuff you experience. You're on a journey with each other. And so if you're up close to them on the side of them, you can listen and you can interact. And you can take this journey together. You are in the seat with them. They're beside you. So you lead from the side. And you lead from the rear. What are you talking about lead from the rear? Well, you observe from the rear. And this is one of my favorites because you reach a certain point as a leader that you can get behind your troops and you can watch how you empowered them to go do their jobs. They are empowered and released. And it's a great thing to watch. It's a work of art sometimes. When the team you have released and they go out there and start doing great things on their own because you empowered them, there ain't nothing much better than that. And so that's leading from the rear or observing from the rear. So it's called the leadership shuffle. You do all three of these at the same time. There's times you walk ahead as an example. There are times that you walk beside them as a leader who cares about them. One of the main things you're going to hear from me today is if you are a leader, you need to care about your troops. And as a police chief, and I don't know what my people think about me. I'm retired now, but if you were to ask one of them, say, how was Chief Wilson as a police chief? If that man or woman were to answer you and say, you know, David Wilson as a chief, he did his best to lead us. He tried to get us the equipment we needed and the pay raises we needed, and he tried to take care of us. And he did his best to lead us. And he was human, though. He made mistakes. He was human. But one thing we do know, and he was effective. We were effective police department. But one thing I do know is that man cared about us. If that's what my people will say about me, then that's mission accomplished. That's all I care is that they knew I cared about them, and I think they do, because I do. So you do need to walk beside them as a leader who cares, and you walk behind them as a leader who empowers. And you do all three of these at the same time. That's what you always do as a leader. Always. You do all three of these and you mix it up with your people. Who can tell me, and most time people don't know what this acronym means until they sit through one of my classes like this. This is a management acronym. Who can tell me what MBWA stands for? It's a management acronym, actual management acronym. Who can tell me what it stands for? Any guesses? It's called management while walking around. That means you as a leader, you go to where your people are. You as a leader, you don't wait for your people to come to you. You go to where they are and you walk around and you listen to them and you interact with them and you connect with them. If you don't do that, then a lot of times you're up in your little ivory tower and they only hear from you by memo because you're doing management by memo, and that's not good. That's not the leader you want to be. And so you're out, and as you're doing that, you're inspecting what you expect. And the beauty about that is you catch your people doing good stuff when nobody is looking. They don't think anybody's looking, and you're getting to see that. And so that's what you want to do. You want to be a leader that's with your people, not up in some ivory tower. I've worked for both. Why do you think if I'd go out and check with my people, I wouldn't call dispatch and say, hey, this is your chief, I'm out and about riding around. I never would do that. I would just show up at a traffic stop or just show up on a call just to be out there with them. Expectations talk, okay? You need to have an expectations talk. What's the good thing? Like, do y'all have shift leaders in dispatch? Okay, so let's say you're working for a shift leader, but then you get sent to a new shift leader and you're on a new shift. What's the benefit of the new shift leader giving you an expectations talk of what she or he expects from you when you come to that shift? What's the benefit of that? Yeah, there should be some standardized things that we generally do together, but yeah, there's going to be some things that's a little different per shift. So is that a beneficial thing for you, regardless of how many years you've been in, for you to receive an expectations talk when you get a new person over? Maybe not new, but a person new to your shift, yeah. I give an expectations talk. I have about 2 pages of bullets that I go over with every police officer. Every police officer. It's the do's and don'ts. These are things that we're not going to put up with. This is who we are. These are things we do. These are things we don't do. If I bring a police officer in and I say, these are 2 bullets I go over. This is just 2 bullets I go over. I will look at you and when I'm saying this in front of 30 police officers or 40 police officers, I say, let me advise you of this. The badge will get you women, and I stop. And all the cops answer will get your badge like y'all just did. That badge will get you women, and women will get your badge. And that's something I cover with them. And I tell my employees, I tell my police officers, I said, listen, at this agency, if you're married and you work for us, if you're out here running the roads at night having an affair with people, not your wife, I got a problem with that. And I'm telling you on day one, I got a problem with that. If you don't value your family, I don't want you working here. And I'm telling you this on expectations talk day one. If you're single, you don't have to be married. But if you're single and you out here breaking up families left and right, I don't want you working here. And we're going to talk about that. And we do. Okay, what about this one? Expectations talk, bullet like number 10. I say, as a police officer, you're not going to party and police in the same town. You're not going to do it. Well, and I've been asked, you can't, as a police chief, you can't direct people that can't go in bars and Foley. I said, no, I can't. But I'm telling you on day one, you're not going to party and police in the same town. Not going to do it. Because if you do it, if you're in there partying in a bar as a Foley police officer in your own town, something's going to eventually happen. And you're going to be intoxicated. Something happens and you go over there and badge this situation and you start trying to police while intoxicated. Is that a problem? Yes, it's a problem. And they get in trouble. And then they're back in front of my desk, oh, chief, What did I tell you? And I say what I mean what I say. I told you you're not going to party and police in the same town. and you did it anyway. And that back then, a year and a half ago, was your warning. And now you're in trouble. What about this? You are a police officer and you're in the bar and you done down 6 or 7 beers in Foley, your city that you're policing, but you're off duty. You're in there, you done drank 6 or 7 beers. This civilian is inside the bar. Guess what he's doing? What are you doing as a civilian? Huh? Watching him. Thank you. Every one of y'all said watching him. Everyone knows that's an off-duty cop. What about this? You're an off-duty cop with the Foley Police Department. You're in the bar in Foley, which I done told you not to do. You done put down 6 or 7 beers. And this man right here is somebody you arrested for DUI. Is that cool or not cool? No, it ain't cool. It ain't cool at all, and it's not okay. Me, like 3 beers, I'm probably a .08. I'm not a big drinker. Well, I drink girly drinks, but I'm comfortable in my manhood. Got a badge and gun. I'll drink a girly drink, umbrella. It don't matter to me. I'm comfortable in my manhood. So when I'm serious, like 3 beers, I'm an 08. But surely 7 or 8 drinks, I don't care who you are, you're approaching an 08. And this man you put in jail sees that. That ain't cool. And so these are some of the expectations talk. Your expectations talk to a new employee in the racket club is going to be different than it is with the police. It's going to be different in dispatch. It's going to be different in communication director positions. What's your title again?
Communications manager.
Manager. I'm sorry, I said director. I said manager. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. You empower your leaders and they have full accountability. Full accountability. And they're fully empowered. Another thing I cover with my guys, we have to deal with violence, but I'm going to tell you this, as a police officer, when the cuffs go on, the fight is what? Over. When the cuffs go on, the fight's over. You don't keep wailing on somebody when the cuffs are on. You won't be working here. However, I know there's howevers. Kicking and spitting, I'm not talking about that.
No, I mean, we had a guy that almost kicked 2 of our officers' butts.
I know that. They get some of that kung fu stuff going. I'm not talking about that. You know what I'm talking about because you answered pretty quick. I know. They put that kung fu action on you. There's some folks out there talented with their legs. I know that. Generally, that's not what I'm talking about. But lead people the right way. And let me say this, if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to have those expectations talks with people, if you're not willing to lead people the right way and have bold talks and sometimes even uncomfortable talk with somebody, you're not willing to do any of those things, you're just trying to be somebody's buddy. Who is that right there? Huh? It's from Smoking About. Who is it? Come on now, the whole class, all of you. What?
I don't know.
Don't you? Man, don't even try no more. Don't even try no more. Are you telling me this is of Pelham PD, 4th class, this is the only class doesn't know who that is, cannot name him? Buford T. Justice. You are the man. Man, you are impressive. I got to give your name to the chief. Buford T. Justice. Now, all joking aside, when I put my folks through this training, I've got pictures of him like that around the PD, and it says, there's signs, there's a caption that reads, what kind of leader are you going to be today? You going to be a real deal leader? And that what they know that to mean is, you going to be a real deal leader, or you going to try to be someone's buddy today? Somebody's buddy. That's not a new term. It's not a new concept. People being buddies to people and not doing their job in law enforcement. In leadership, I mean. Lead people the right way. Let me ask you this. When we say, and I want you to think about it carefully because I want you to give me the definitions, but think about it before you give me the definitions. Discipline is required. You got to have discipline if you're going to have a professional police department. You may not have a lot of it because the better you get, the less discipline you have, but you will have to use discipline. I promise you. But discipline needs to be fair and consistent. So think about those 2 terms. So tell me, when I say discipline needs to be fair, what am I saying? Give me the definition. What does that mean? Discipline needs to be fair. Tell me. Huh? Okay.
people are doing the same thing, but you write one of them up, but you don't write the other one up because it could be your buddy.
Okay, and you basically just gave the definition of consistent. It's fair, it's fair or not fair, but you just gave the definition of fair, of discipline being consistent.
Fit the infraction.
The punishment needs to fit the crime, okay? Fairness, discipline that needs to be fair, punishment needs to fit the crime, if you will. We don't really mean crime, but you know what I'm saying. So let's say this, like, if you do something and I look at it like, you did this as an employee of mine, and I get all prideful and I take it personally because you did that under my watch, under my department, and I get all prideful and I say, all right, you did that, I'm going to crucify him and give him 3 weeks off without pay or something crazy like that. When it probably should have been just a couple of days maybe. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. And the punishment didn't fit the crime or the infraction. But fair, now so consistent, tell me that again, discipline needs to be consistent. Say that again, what you said.
If two people do the same thing, don't write one of them up, not the other.
That's right. Two people did the same thing and you write one up and you don't do anything to the other. That's not fair, first of all, but it's not consistent. So let me give you another example. So I have a police officer that does X, Y, Z, and I haven't seen that in a while. So he or she's got some discipline coming, so I ask my staff, I say, hey, who was the last person? I know someone did that, it's been a while, but I can't remember. Who's the last person that did X, Y, Z? And they say, that was Officer Johnson like a year and a half ago. Well, what did we do to him? I will go look it up. Go look it up and see what we did. Why am I doing that? To be fair, to be consistent. Okay, so let me say this. What if I have no ill intent? I don't mean to do this. I don't mean to get it wrong, but I have no ill intent, but I just simply, I'm a chief, I'm busy. And so I say, I don't even take time to do that. I go, okay, you did this, so I'm going to give you 5 days off without pay. But a year and a half ago, you did the same thing, but you got 3 days off without pay. And I just didn't go check. I didn't mean to do that, but who's going to know the difference?
The person that got 5 days off.
And who else? Everybody. Thank you. Everybody. Everybody's going to be talking about it. And they're going to be saying you were not fair. So you need to take that time, but discipline needs to be fair and consistent. And this is another thing. And we'll take a break here in just a minute. When I got talking about, I'm a chief and you did this to you did it. You know what? Sometimes as leaders, we take ourselves too serious. Sometimes as leaders, we may think it's treason. It's high treason what you did. Treason to me, because I'm not a king or a queen. It ain't high treason. It's a simple mistake. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes we need to back off of that. We need to take our crown off. You're not a king. You're not a queen. You're a leader. And this person really just did make a mistake. This is not high treason. You don't need to crucify this guy. It's not a full-scale treason. It's not a full-scale rebellion. They simply made a mistake. And you need to treat that accordingly. The enemy of all leadership is pride. And sometimes we get a little prideful as leaders and we take ourselves too serious. And we don't do we let that cloud our judgment. So, with that being said, let me cover this before we take a break. What about this? I hate to discipline my people, they're my friends. What about that? Yeah, in law enforcement, most of our friends are fellow law enforcement people. Most of your friends, dispatchers, a lot of your friends are dispatchers, that kind of stuff. So what if I have, I'm going to pick on you two, y'all sitting up front, but what if I have, you're a supervisor and you're his friend and you did something to get in trouble, but you tell him, look, we're friends and everything, but if you do that, if you write me up, we ain't friends no more. Okay, two things on that. And I've actually had to have this discussion with two people at my table, at my desk. Look, your supervisor's right. You're wrong. You got some discipline coming, and that's approved what he recommended. And then as they were leaving, I said, hey guys, stop for a minute. And I said, let me tell you this. Because I'd already heard this. I said, if you're his friend, you should not have put him in that what? Position. And if you have to discipline, which it is coming, if this affects your friendship and y'all are not friends anymore, you need to know that you never were friends in the what? In the first place, in the beginning. Thank you. You weren't friends in the first place. And so that's the friendship thing. The business is business. You can have friendships, but business is business.